everybody, my name's Kelly and welcome back to my channel. This is day 4 of my 7 Days of Beauty and the Beast series. I'm basically using this to count down to the live action film release starring Emma Watson. Yesterday you had 3 adult Beauty and the Beast retelling reviews, and on day 2 you had 3 YA retelling reviews. So back today, here I am with 3 more YA retelling reviews, and then tomorrow there'll be 3 adult reviews, so in total there are going to be 12 Beauty and the Beast retelling reviews over the course of this 7-day series. So today we're going to be talking about Roses by G.R. Mannering, although she's now going by Rose Mannering. We've also got, let me remind myself, of Beast and Beauty by Stacey J. And also Beastly by Alex Flynn, which is the one I'm going to start us off with. This is a fairly well-known Beauty and the Beast retelling. It has been around for a few years and also been made into a film starring Alex Pettyfer. It's about a boy called Kyle, who is the most handsome boy in his school, the most popular and just as arrogant. His father is a famous newsreader who is more concerned with appearances than with his own son. And one day, one of Kyle's classmates, who happens to be a witch, repays his cruelty by putting him under a curse, which transforms him into a hideous beast. He is pretty ugly in this one. Since Kyle's whole world and all the relationships in it are based entirely on appearances, everything comes crumbling down around him. He winds up completely isolated, living in a house with a maid and a blind tutor, until one day a girl called Lindy comes to live with him, and he knows that she is his one chance to break the spell. I gave this book 2.5 to 3 out of 5 stars. I just didn't really like any of the characters very much. I thought that Kyle, who becomes known as Adrian, went through a lot of growth, as you would hope, but he does it mostly to win the heart of Lindy and to make Lindy happy. And who the hell is Lindy? Lindy to me is no great beacon of purity or like an impetus for change. She just wasn't anything special, which made all Kyle's efforts, and he did put in a lot of work, fall a bit flat, and I just didn't really care. The writing was clear and simple, which doesn't sound like a bad thing, but kind of contributes to the fact that the characters come across as quite immature. However, my least favourite part were the excerpts taken from chat room conversations, which is the only way that Kyle can communicate with the outside world. In these chat rooms, Kyle's handle is Beast NYC, but there are other characters, including one called Silent Maid, who says she is a mermaid, and a frog who says he used to be a prince. So I'm not sure what Alex Flynn was trying to imply there, whether all these fairy tale characters are real, which ordinarily I would be okay with, but because they came across as so one-dimensional and irritating and immature, I really hope that they're not, and it kind of starts to spoil the actual original fairy tales. Or maybe it all ties into the fact that Alex Flynn has written other retellings, so maybe I would like it more then, but I kind of doubt it because I didn't think it was very well executed. Next up we have Of Beast and Beauty by Stacey J. In this book there are people who live inside domed cities and there are people who live outside the domes in the desert. The people who live in the desert are called the monstrous, and the monstrous are called that because they have poisonous claws, big teeth, scales, their bodies are bigger than the average, and that is just because they developed that way to cope with the harsh environment. In a domed city called Yuan, the blind Princess Isra has been raised to be a sacrifice for her people. This is because the magic believed to sustain life within the dome comes from the roses, and the roses need to be fed every 30 years or so, and the only thing that the roses eat is royal female blood. Sorry, it just got really dark. One day, a monstrous called Jem is caught trying to steal the roses because he hopes that their magic can help to save his starving people, and he doesn't know the cost of that magic. Jem and Isra are each monsters in the other's eyes, and their people have been at war for longer than anyone can remember, but slowly they get to know each other, they come to care for each other, and they begin to understand some of the lies surrounding them, and the lies go back a long way. This was another 2.5 to 3 out of 5 stars for me, although I did enjoy it more than Beastly, so it's leaning more towards the 3 stars. I found the characters to be much better, although one of them carried on lying to the other for a bit longer than I wanted them to, and possibly a little bit longer than I can forgive. And there is one character who is pure plot device. When he's called Beau, and when the plot needed some ambiguity, he was one of the grey areas. When it needed some conflict, he was either friend or foe. His emotions were all over the place, and I really do not respect storytelling that relies on that kind of convenience. Also, in terms of the world building for this book, I actually felt like it tried to encompass quite a lot. Like, you did get to see some geography, history, politics, sociology, even some economics. But then when it came time to wrap everything up, the conclusion really wimps out of encompassing that same breadth of detail. Instead, it shrinks and begins to focus in from there onto a relatively small conclusion, just the conclusion of the two main characters. Everything else that is actually really important happens off screen, as it were, and is just mentioned to you in an epilogue, which I just thought was a little bit cowardly. And finally, we have Roses by G.R. Mannering, also known as Rose Mannering, who is a booktuber that I will link down below. And having told you about 3 fairly average books, this was not average. In fact, until I got to the ending, I was pretty sure this was going to be a 4.5 or a 5 out of 5 stars, which would have made it my first 5 out of 5 stars of 2017. Instead, it sits very strongly at 4 out of 5 stars. Our heroine Beauty is born with amethyst eyes, silvery skin and white hair into a world where magic bloods are in increasing danger. Fortunately, from the moment she is born and abandoned at the hospital, with only a rose amulet as a clue to her identity, Beauty shows no signs of magic, but is nevertheless shunned because of her appearance, and in fact, she's only given the name Beauty as a cruel taunt. She grows up as the neglected and much gossiped over ward of a high society family until she is taken off into the hill lands to escape magical persecution. There, she is once again ostracized by the locals for her appearance, but she does develop a skill for training horses that makes her useful to them, and then one day she goes off into the enchanted forest. We don't actually meet the Beast until the final third of the story, which ordinarily would leave me feeling quite impatient because I would be reading solely to get to that point. However, I found, even though this is character driven for sure, the plot is also really strong, and it's strong enough that I was content to wait. And the preceding events were interesting enough that I was happy to bide my time. However, when we did finally meet the Beast, I did find myself wishing that we'd spent a bit more time with him come the end. Of all the Beauty and the Beast retellings that I have read, his appearance came across as the most grotesque, and I love the fact that there was that real visual barrier between him and Beauty. Because I always think, for example, with the Disney, that I could more easily love the Beast than the Prince, because the Prince is not all that, but the Beast is really cute. This Beast is not cute. So the fact that I was left wishing we'd seen more of the Beast affected my rating overall a little bit, as did the fact that I found the ending a bit scattered, mostly because of geography, because Beauty goes to a few different locations at the end, which basically are not where I want her to be at the end, and I'm not sure how necessary it was for her to go there to wrap up her story, considering that it actually doesn't wrap up her story. There are still a lot of unanswered questions at the end of this book, which is why it's the start of, I think, a trilogy. The sequel is called Feathers, and it follows a different main character in this same world and in this same impending war. And Beauty has a cameo in that book I've read, but my remaining interest in Beauty and her story goes way beyond a cameo, so I would much rather just carry on following her, and that would also give me more of the Beast, which would answer, you know, that minor issue that I have with this first book. Also, I have to tell you, my favourite character was probably the one called Eli, who's basically the Gaston of the piece, who I found to be really fascinating, and I'm not sure how fascinating I was meant to find him because it's not categorically clear what happens to him at the end, so maybe he wasn't that significant, but I just found him so intriguing and I would love to see more of him. So those are the final YA Beauty and the Beast retellings I'll be telling you about in this series. Although there were 2 with only, you know, middle ratings here, if they were genuinely bad books, they would be far lower than that. So these 2 are still worth checking out. However, if you can only afford one retelling, Get Roses by Rose Mannering. You will not regret it. Thoroughly enjoyed it. Let me know if you are going to check any of them out. If you have already checked any of them out, let me know what you thought. Join me in the next video, and also check out the other videos in the series, which I will leave linked down below. Give this video a thumbs up, and I hope to see you in the next one. Bye!